Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today, where we will be talking to one of our alums and professors about the Advanced Certificate in Computer Science for Digital Forensics. So welcome. We have with us this evening two wonderful guests. We have Professor Shweta Jain. She's an associate professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science. She's also the co-director of the Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity Program at John Jay and doctoral faculty of Computer Science at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. She's also the director of the Advanced Certificate in Applied Advanced Certificate in Computer Science for Digital Forensics. Welcome, Shweta. And we are very fortunate to have our soon-to-be alum, Mark Edwards. Mark works as a security and privacy manager at EHE Health to advance and develop the security and privacy program, including incident monitoring and vulnerability remediation. He previously worked for EHE as a system administrator and was the main administrator and technician for all Zoom support, including the configuration and hosting of several public, all company, and internal Zoom webinars. So welcome once again. So Shweta, why don't we start with you? If you could tell us a little bit about the Advanced Certificate and how it's designed to serve the current, company and agency needs.
Sure. So the Advanced Certificate in Computer Science for Digital Forensics is our way to cast a wider net to get people who have a non-technical background as well as people who have technical background together to complete a 4-course sequence, which includes computer science, algorithm programming in Python and C++, computer networking, databases, operating system security, and network security. With all that knowledge accumulated over 4 intensive classes, students are ready to get into a master's in cybersecurity and digital forensics. And that's the program all about. So we welcome students who are from criminal justice or electrical engineering, or they got their degrees in computer science some years ago and they need to refresh and review some of the material before they're ready to go into a master's program.
Thank you, Shweta. So, Mark, tell us about yourself and your journey to the Advanced Certificate and about the 4 courses that you took.
Yes. So I years ago majored in communications, actually in advertising at the University of Texas in Austin. I, at that time, probably should have gone into computer science, but didn't. Basically then went into advertising initially, then ran a business with my wife, and then kind of slowly transitioned back to technology by working for the Apple Fifth Avenue flagship store, basically in their Genius Bar for about 4.5 years, becoming a Mac technician, iOS technician. By the end of it, training like teams of new technicians, basically, and then got an opportunity to work in consulting for a little IT consulting firm that supported a lot of Mac sort of based businesses, Apple-based businesses, and then from there was offered a job at my current employer, EHE Health, first as a system administrator, but along the way, and then as a security, I'm in a security position now, but along the way, while I was at Apple, actually still, I decided to further my education that I wanted to go into cybersecurity, and that I really did a lot of research of the programs that were available, and there wasn't a lot at that time. I feel like a lot of options in New York City that really specialized in it, and I really felt like for the value, especially in the reputation of the program, that John Jay was a very clear choice out of all the options that were available to people in New York City at that time, in my opinion, based on my research. So that's what I did, and I started with the bridge program that that Dr. Jain mentioned, and had really always intended to get the master's. So I have the certificate that we talked about, but I'm graduating this month with the master's in digital forensics and cybersecurity. So
It's great. Congratulations.
thank you.
That's exciting, Mark. So, Professor Jain, could you tell us a little bit about the professors that teach the courses in the advanced certificate?
Sure. So in the advanced certificate, we first start students off with the fundamentals of computer science with a 708, which includes programming, algorithm, data structure, operating system, databases, computer networks, all of that in 708, and then advanced topics that follow up in 709. So we have our core faculty who teach 708 and 709. These are very hardcore classes. So we take turns to teach it. We have different people teaching the 708, 709 sequence. And then we have the operating system class, which is called the Architecture and Vulnerability of Secure Operating System. And then we have the Network Security class. And for the past 3 years, past 5 years, I'm the one teaching both classes. And that's where I meet all of the new students. So anybody who takes any class in digital forensics goes through me first.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really good that you get to interact with all the students that take the certificate. So Mark, how did the advanced certificate prepare you for your career? You could talk about specific professors or courses, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it kind of gets you into the proper mindset, and it puts you with like-minded, people who are pursuing this. This just the influence of the not only professors but the classmates is really integral. And in my case, I had a classmate, you probably remember, Dr. Jain, Jose, who was just amazing, like an amazing influence on me and a resource for me, and like really honestly probably helped me get through this degree. Like in large part, I have him to thank, because he had more of a technical background than I did, but he kind of always was the guy I could go to for catching up on if I missed a class or missed a homework assignment and needed to get it from him or what have you. But I think that so if I think about the classes that I learned the most, I think Dr. Jain's class on secure operating systems was a big one for sure. She's still one of my favorite professors to this day. I'm not just saying that because she's here. And I think that she really engaged everybody in a discussion. So I think those classes I think a lot of the classes in the program, the professors do a pretty good job of engaging students in open discussion on things, and it's not just assigning homework and lectures where they're lecturing at you the whole time. There's a lot of discussion. So in group projects and things where you have to work with people and you have to do your own research, but also work as a team, and you have to work really be super resourceful. Like still to this day, 708 and 709, the first two classes were some of the most difficult classes that I've taken. As Dr. Jain said, they're a crash course. They're intense classes, and you have to learn how to program something in C sometimes as a technical background person like myself, who hadn't really had computer science education up until then. And luckily I was always kind of into computers and resourceful and really wanted to do this. So I felt like I could do and had that confidence, and had my other resources in the class like Jose that I could kind of consult with to learn. So, and the professors were also very supportive. Like when you struggle a little bit, like they find ways to help you. So.
Thanks, Mark. I won't lie. I don't know what programming in C means, and I don't know.
It's a language. It's a language nobody programs in anymore, but they did more so about 20 years ago.
But I did have a little bit before. It's in your bio, and before we started, you mentioned that you did work for Zoom, and you worked for Zoom during the pandemic. So I
Oh,
was just
Apple.
really curious.
I worked for Apple
Op-
during, or no, sorry, I worked for Apple, but I didn't ever. I worked like I was the Zoom guy at my company who was the main IT guy who like could help you with your Zoom problems and administered all these like Zoom webinars and things like that during the pandemic. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So, Professor Shweta, what activities do you consider to be most beneficial to students in completing their advanced certificate?
So the advanced certificate by itself is a 4-course sequence, and when they're taking 708, 709, they have to make sure that they are writing programs and following the curriculum, doing all the work that the course requires. But really, writing programs is very important. Having the algorithmic thinking is required because that gives you the analytical skills for the future, not just for the master's that you go to after the advanced certificate, but also throughout life. Learning how to design a solution to a problem, that's algorithmic thinking, and that is extremely important. So that's something that they should focus on when they are in the advanced certificate. And they will transition to the master's after the advanced certificate because that's the goal of this advanced certificate. And so when they go into the master's, they would do all the classes which are pretty hands-on. Most of them are hands-on, but then they will eventually have a choice of doing a thesis or a project or field work. So I highly recommend getting either an internship in the area of cybersecurity or forensics that you want to see yourself in the next 5 years or next 2 years, in fact, so that you can get the experience you need once you graduate. Or if you can't, then take up a thesis or a project that would give you the knowledge that you need to further your career. So it's master's is not an end game. Master's follows with a career change. And so that's why it's important to place the thesis and capstone. That's a very important thing, to place a student into the right career path.
That's good advice. Thank you. Mark, what is your biggest takeaway from obtaining the advanced certificate?
I guess I'm a person who feels like your real world experience is equally as important. So I really tried the whole time, really by going to Apple first, and then by getting out of the Apple store and transitioning into IT consulting, and then working in IT infrastructure at EHE, and all these things that brought me to my current position in security. I was always trying to develop myself professionally simultaneously with going through the program at John Jay to get the real world experience at the same time to kind of take me down that path. So I wasn't like in some other unrelated job up until the point where I got my certificate or master's, and then looking for an internship. At that point, I was trying to get that experience earlier. So that my biggest advice, honestly, is you don't have to do what I did. You don't have to be working necessarily in IT. You don't have to be working in security while you're going to school necessarily, but educate yourself outside of school, and I think that being at John Jay, it gets you, like I said, in that mindset, so that you start to think. It gives you ideas of things that you can research on your own time, and maybe little certifications you can get, or courses you can take to kind of supplement your knowledge, or just like gets you in the habit of just reading the news about cybersecurity and about the latest vulnerabilities that affect companies and governments and whatever else, the biggest news items out there. It just kind of, that's my biggest takeaway, is it kind of just got me in the habit of really educating myself everywhere, across not just at John Jay, but in the world. So.
No, absolutely. Good points. And related to what Shweta said before. Shweta, can you talk a little bit more about where the students usually end up finding jobs, or if they've changed their career, what those career change paths have been?
Right. So we had a student who completed a political science degree in the undergraduate, and then he went to the T4CS program. Um, and this student is a security analyst in a company. So I would say the umbrella title is security engineer, and within that there is penetration testing, there is risk analysis, then there are CISOs, cybersecurity heads of organizations. We also have students who take the forensics part of the degree and they go into labs, forensic labs. So we have people in DA's office doing forensic analysis on phones, on operating systems and on the hard drives. So we have both public and private company employees now. Like we've generated people who are security engineer at Google at one end, but also they are in CISA at the other end. So yeah, so that's basically the spectrum of companies, but the job is security related and forensics related.
That's great. That's great to see our students going into those fields. So Mark, if you could give one piece of advice to students that were considering pursuing the advanced certificate, what would that be?
I would just say, think about early on what it is the best you can, what your ultimate goal is. Try to figure out what area of cybersecurity or digital forensics you really want to go into, because there's a lot of different ways you can go, and some of them are less technical. So I think it's important to know. I think it's important it sets you apart to go to John Jay and get this technical background. But if you're not coming from an engineering background or computer science, there's a lot of need for cybersecurity people that are not necessarily doing penetration testing. They might be just doing risk remediation and general just vulnerability management, sort of like what I'm doing now. I would like to do I think I probably will eventually want to do something a little bit more technical, just because I find that stuff fun and more interesting than doing the more corporate things in the long term. But I might change my tune because I'm getting older, and but the point being, just think about it, which part of cybersecurity you want to go into, and how this is going to help you get there, and what other things you might need to get there. So for me, it's likely we'll try to get my CISSP certification, which is sort of the gold standard in the industry, very soon, hopefully within the next year or so. But yeah, just thinking of all those other things along the way that you should be learning and doing, and to kind of get to where you want to get.
It's very useful insight and tips that you're sharing. Thank you, Mark. A similar question to you, Shweta, then. If you could give a piece of advice to students who are thinking of pursuing this certificate, what would it be?
So I would say be ready for really, really hard 2 semesters. So these are intensive classes. So you have to really know that it's not just 3 credit classes. They are 3 credit classes, but it requires consistent effort for every single module, because you're going to switch your the material every 2 weeks. The 708, 709 sequence, they have 4 books for those classes. So each class has 4 textbooks. So it's going to be a lot of material. And again, I would echo what Mark said. Not everybody would go to do hardcore technical things. So if you want to do really technical oriented work, then this is a good program. An advanced certificate would prepare you for it. But there are a lot of cybersecurity curriculum elsewhere, which is just policy oriented. And then you don't touch upon that much of or any of technical work. So maybe that if you're not ready for the hardcore lift of mathematics, which you haven't learned before, but now you have to learn it in this one semester, and then programming, which comes right from mathematics. So yeah, so be ready for the hard work, and then it will reward you in the future.
That's good, honest advice. But it seems to be, even though that first semester may be difficult, there is a lot of support from everyone, including other students and faculty in the programs. So I think even though it's hard, you can navigate it. I just want to thank both of you once again for being here with us this evening to talk about the advanced certificate in computer science for digital forensics. I learned a lot. I am sure that our viewers have also learned a lot. And I just want to close off the evening again by saying thank you.